Formula E driving experience. 24 racers from the world of motorsports and esports will go up against each other on rFactor 2 over 6 25-minute races. And this time they'll have to master energy management and attack mode, translating the challenges of real-world Formula E racing into the virtual world more accurately than ever before. Qualifying for each race will take place as part of the race show in the same familiar format we're used to in Formula E. 4 groups of 6 drivers going out one at a time with one flying lap to earn their grid position. Further combining the real and virtual worlds, each competitor will score Formula E Accelerate points for a real-life Formula E team, with the grid for the competition being made up of direct invites and those that achieve the best times in the online qualifier. During that qualifier stage, lap times were set by some of the biggest names in sim racing. There was barely 0.05 of a second between the top 3.
Hello, we are back. It's Thursday night, 7 p.m. GMT, meaning it's time for Formula E Accelerate. Now, we went away for a bit. There was a Formula E doubleheader in Diriyah, and Season 7 has begun. But now we are back in our studio in the heart of London, England, our COVID-safe bubble at Formula E headquarters. I'm Darren Adetosio.
And I'm Jack Nichols, and we are ready to resume this thrilling esports series, bringing together some of the best sim racers on the planet and watching them race for the incredible prize pool of €100,000 and an actual drive in an actual Formula E car. The double points final is now just 2 weeks away, but there's a lot of ground to cover between now and then.
Indeed, in the next 90 minutes, you'll see round 4 live, preceded by qualifying, and before that, half the grid of real-life Formula E drivers competing in their own Grand Slam esports race.
Later, we will be joined by motorsport megastar and esports team boss Romain Grosjean, plus trailblazing racing driver Jade Edwards, and Mercedes EQ Formula E team boss Ian James.
So, you're in the right place for a packed programme, and as we are live, we would love to hear from you. Questions, comments, where you're rooting for, who you're rooting for, let us know using the hashtag FEAccelerate. And if your preferred language is Spanish or Portuguese, we have co-streamers on Twitch serving you up this show in their own way, so you can check them out or here.
And we'll be sticking to English because we've nearly got on top of that.
Yeah, I think I got a bit carried away.
We've got Al Capone and the Most Wanted together on the Spanish stream, and Velio Camp and Guto Colvera together in Portuguese. So let's bring you up to speed. After 3 rounds, the clear frontrunners are Race at Home challenge winner Kevin Ciggy and World's Fastest Gamer finalist Erhan Yuyovsky.
Formula E Accelerates launched on the streets of New York City, and it was clear from the off that rFactor 2 specialist Erhan Yuyovsky would be a hot favourite.
The race gets underway in Formula E Accelerate.
Having put his Rocket Venturi car on pole position, the North Macedonian held off a challenge from Manuel Biancalila in the opening corners and began to pull ahead.
For the first round, I managed to pull a gap because the guys behind me were fighting each other, which made my job a lot easier.
And those guys behind were Biancalila, Kevin Ciggy and Graham Carroll in the fight for the remaining podium places. The added challenges of attack mode and energy management spice things up on track with no shortage of overtakes.
Carroll goes to the inside, Biancalila squeezes him, but Carroll is through, up into second place.
In the final few laps, a thrilling battle between Bono Huis, Ciggy and Biancalila eventually decided the podium positions.
This is the battle for third place on the final lap, and Manuel Biancalila takes it.
While Yoyoski took the win by nearly 7 seconds over Graham Carroll. Carroll was later penalised 10 seconds, which dropped him out of the points, promoting Biancalila to second and Ciggy onto the podium for third.
Overall, I didn't really enjoy the first 2 rounds, and I think I should have done a much better job in at least the first round. Second round was a bit harder, but yeah, it is what it is.
That second round was in Hong Kong, and while Ciggy started in P4, it was Yoyoski again on pole with F1 esports runner-up Freddie Rasmussen alongside him. Yoyoski managed to hold off an early challenge from the Dragon Penske Autosport car, while behind him, Envision Virgin Racing's Graham Carroll, keen to make amends for his round 1 penalty, slotted into 5th past Martin Stefanko. In a drama-packed race, DTM esports finalist pave was spun around by Mark Gassner in an incident that would later see the German penalised.
Kevin Ciggy on the attack up the inside of Marius Gollenbeck, almost feeds him into the wall. The two stay side by side, but Ciggy's through then.
Kevin Ciggy made the most of attack mode to take third place from Marius Gollenbeck, while out front, some shrewd energy management saw Rasmussen pile the pressure on leader Yoyoski.
The highlight for me is definitely round 2. At the end of the race, our fight between me and Rasmussen. He was pushing me really hard, but I managed to defend my position and cross the line P1.
And it is 2 wins in a row for the North Macedonian.
Round 3 saw the improvement in qualifying that Kevin Ciggy needed, the Slovenian starting from pole at Berlin's Tempelhof Airport alongside Rasmussen. Yoyoski had a poor qualifying session by his standards, but made up 2 places in the opening lap into P7. Behind them, the luckless Artelejuk had his DS2 spun around by Marius Gollenbeck at turn 1 in another race to keep the virtual race stewards busy. Ciggy momentarily gave up the lead to Rasmussen as he dived to take attack mode, but soon took it back with the extra power boost and never let it go.
Up the inside of Freddie Rasmussen. Rasmussen tries to hang it on, but he can't quite get the job done.
Another driver to make use of attack mode was Bono Huis, as the 5-time Formula Sim champion dived past Peter Berliat for third, and he was soon followed by Graham Carroll. But both Huis and Carroll had miscalculated their energy management, sensationally running out of usable energy in the dying stages.
And Carroll has hit 0%, Huis has hit 0%, they've both stopped. They think that was the end of the race, they thought that was all they had to do.
Ahead of them, Ciggy converted his pole position into the race win in front of Rasmussen.
To get the win for round 3, it felt pretty good, pretty satisfying. Getting that pole was super important, and yeah, it just gives me a small boost for the next round.
The DNFs for Huis and Carroll meant that Yoyoski finished 4th and retains the overall standings lead.
We've had our share of fights with Kevin over the past couple of years, so we know each other quite well, and I expect for the second half of the season the battle to intensify and things will get more interesting.
So that is Erhan Yoyoski, the championship leader. Kevin Ciggy, he's the only driver to have had a podium in every race so far, winning the last race as well. He's there in second place. And Freddie Rasmussen, after struggling in his opening race, his first ever race on rFactor 2, is there in third place. So Yoyoski leads, Darren, but he's got a lot of pressure coming.
He does, because he obviously ran round 1 and 2. Didn't have the best race last month,
Yeah.
in fact. We've been in Diriyah for a month, in case you missed that. So yeah, the pressure's definitely on, but it'll be interesting to see if he's going to try and clutch his title.
25 drivers on the list now, you can see, because Kelvin van der Linde is down there, so is Michi Hoyer, and it is going to be Michi Hoyer who will be out racing for Audi this time, because Kelvin van der Linde, as we speak, will be hanging up his race suit after his first DTM test with Mike Rockenfeller at Vallelunga. So that's a valid excuse. He gets a pass.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what Michi Hoyer can do after struggling a little bit in his debut race last time out.
Likewise. Well, the circuit they're competing on today is aligned with the real-world Formula E World Championship, Diriyah, and it's brand new to rFactor, so it's box fresh, only a week old. Can't say the same about your shoes, Jack, but if you hadn't had the chance to take your Formula E car for a spin around the Arabian World Heritage Site, Jack, why don't you hop into the sim and show you around?
Yeah, I will. I wasn't expecting... We didn't rehearse that shoe burn, did we?
I'm sorry, I had to.
Have you been planning that the whole time?
Maybe. Okay, right. Show us around the Diriyah circuit. We've obviously been there for a week.
Yeah.
So very familiar to us. But for you, as a sim racer yourself in your free time?
Okay, let's not set it up quite that much.
How do you find the track?
So this is the first corner, which we take a lot of curb, and then we swing through this right, and these first few corners are quite technical, and then, well, in fact, the whole circuit is very technical, and you're going to see the elevation changes as we now start to really plunge down the hill. The UNESCO World Heritage Site is on our right as we come down through this sequence of corners. This is where Robin Freitz spun and crashed 2 years ago. He crashed again this year as well. He loves crashing. But yeah, so, and then that's the really sort of tricky downhill bobsleigh section to the bottom of the hill.
And so, would you say that this is one of your favourite circuits?
I think in Formula E terms, it's really good, it's really fast. And the first 2 seasons that Formula E went there, the first year got rained off in the desert, as obviously you would expect.
Yeah.
And then the second year, the track had been relayed, and so it wasn't particularly grippy. So that was a common occurrence, sliding into the wall. That was just to illustrate.
Oh, you were just demonstrating that.
Exactly. That was the season 5 track.
Right.
But then, season 6, I should say. But then for season 7, very grippy, and a lot of the drivers saying it's their favourite Formula E circuit. This is the best overtaking point on the circuit, the chicane, and there's also the attack mode there on the right-hand side. And as ever, there'll be 2 uses of attack mode for 2 minutes in the course of the race. And then down to the final corner at turn 21, onto the brakes, 90-degree right, and out across the line. So that is a lap of the Diriyah circuit. Can you tell? We didn't even put the lap time up. It was so fast.
It was so fast, nearly as fast as my lap, which just is somehow still not on the leaderboard.
One day.
I think you're sabotaging me.
No.
No? Well, okay, whatever. It looks relatively simple, right? So let's actually see how the Formula E drivers coped head-to-head with very little time to practice. Warning, this programme contains some dubious driving, so for any of those with sim racing sensibility, you might want to look away.
So here's a look at our 12 real-world Formula E drivers that are going to be taking to this Diriyah circuit. Points on the line will go towards the Formula E Accelerate Teams Championship. At the back of the grid, it's Norman Nato for the Rocket Venturi Racing Team. Nick Cassidy will be alongside him for Envision Virgin Racing. The Brazilian Sergio Sete Câmara will be in 10th place behind Nick de Vries, who won from pole position in the real-world race in Formula E. He only starts 9th for this. De Grassi and Buemi, the old rivals, together on the 4th row of the grid. De Grassi starting in 8th position, Buemi starting in 7th position. They will be hunting down the top half of the grid, which has Jean-Eric Vergne, the 2-time champion, in 6th position for the DS Techeetah team. Up behind Alexander Sims, another driver who has history at Diriyah, taking 2 pole positions last season and winning 1 of the races. He will line up in 5th. Behind Tom Blomqvist in the Neo 333 entry, and he's behind the Tag Heuer Porsche of Andre Lotterer, starting in 3rd place, finished on the podium here in real life last year. And then the front row of the grid, after an impressive qualifying, it's Sam Bird in the Jaguar Racing entry, and Jake Dennis for BMW I Andretti Motorsport, making his Formula E debut this year. He's lining up on pole position for this Accelerate race. So Dennis on the right, Bird on the left, wait for the lights to go out, and then the race will get underway, and that, I think, might be a jump start from Nick Cassidy. We'll have to wait for the official decision, but it certainly looks as though he went maybe before the lights went out. Down towards the first corner, and there's a bit of contact. I think Jean-Eric Vergne's gone into the back of someone, and Sergio Sete Câmara, the Brazilian, has managed to get through into 2nd place. What a brilliant start for the man from Belo Horizonte. So Jake Dennis out in front. It is 2nd place then for the Dragon car as they come across the line. This is the timing line now. Someone's gone wide out of the final corner. That's Jean-Eric Vergne. The Audi of Lucas de Grassi's in 4th. Bird from 2nd has dropped back. But there is Jake Dennis in the bottom left in this 12-minute race. Now they have to use attack mode twice in this race for 90 seconds apiece. So there's going to be plenty of strategy to come over the course of this. Oh, and Brown goes Vergne. Jean-Eric Vergne spins, dropping down the hill, and a bit of an unsafe rejoin, it has to be said. Just clipped the back, I think, of Sebastian Buemi. Norman Nato's got in front of him too. And And that's frustrating for Verne because you managed to, well, he sort of caused the chaos at the start and then subsequently managed to avoid it. Here's Jake Dennis at the bottom of the hill, though. Under pressure from Sergio Sette Camara, who has made an impressive start to this race. And he's tucked right up behind Dennis as they come through turns 16 and 17 and up the hill towards the chicane at 18 and 19. And Dennis has a good margin. This is the start line, but the timing line is around the next couple of corners. Still yellow flags out there. I think Nick Cassidy is down in the runoff area, so Cassidy won't be taking much more part in this race. I think his race would have been scuppered anyway because of the drive-through penalty. But there is the Brazilian in the bottom left. Race winner in Formula 2, nearly won the Macau Grand Prix a few years ago before crashing at the final corner. But he's putting Jake Dennis under a lot of pressure into turn 1. Back end gets a little loose as he gets on the throttle, and that actually allows Dennis to break away a tiny bit. 10 minutes remaining. Sette Camara, who was very impressive in his Formula E debut in Berlin, out-qualified his teammate Nico Müller at Dragon in 4 of the 6 races that we had in the German capital to round out season 6. And he's very much trying to put Dennis under pressure. Not very neat and tidy down the bobsleigh run, though. Here's Sebastian Buemi, meanwhile, who's in 4th place, up ahead of Norman Nato. The Swiss there from Eigel, up against the Frenchman behind in the black and white Venturi from Cannes. And you can see the concentration on Buemi's face. Now, in the Race at Home Challenge, he didn't start off particularly strongly. He's got 2 kids, and so wasn't really putting a huge amount of time and effort into it. But as the racing progressed, he got better and better and better and finished with a really strong result in the Race at Home Challenge in Berlin. But Nato is on the inside now as they come down into the chicane. A bit of a wheel bang, and Nato gets through. Very nice, neatly executed move from the Frenchman, and he's now up into 4th place. And he'll try and close down on Lucas de Grassi. Jake Dennis sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 16.962. Sergio Sette Camara in 2nd. Interesting that these 2 teams are very strong in the Formula E Accelerate Championship as well. BMW entering this at the top of the standings, with Kevin Ciggy having had a win and 2 third places, but also Dragoner fairly strong, with Freddie Rasmussen picking up 2 second places in the last 2 races. And again, there's a Dragon in 2nd place, although Sette Camara has dropped back a little bit. But if he can make this stick, that'll be 3 seconds in a row for the Venturi team. Oh, Nick de Vries getting out of shape. He was almost on the back of Jean-Eric Verne in the DS Techeetah, but the Mercedes EQ driver making that little error on the run down the hill. And all of a sudden, he finds himself 2 seconds or so back from Jean-Eric Verne. On board with de Vries. And Jake Dennis activates his attack mode then. So the race leader is the first driver to activate his attack mode. He stays in front of Sergio Sette Camara still, though. De Grassi activates his. He's in a fairly comfortable position, De Grassi. 5 seconds clear of Nato. De Vries, I think, is thinking about taking attack mode. He is. And so does Nato, Buemi and Verne. And De Vries there. So Sergio Sette Camara is the driver slightly out of sequence when it comes to using first attack mode. Sims is activating it as well. Cassidy is now out of the race. De Vries has got ahead of Buemi and up to 6th position then. So Buemi making a bit of mistake out there potentially. Andre Losser in the Porsche activates his attack mode too. Here is De Vries, and he's right on the back of Jean-Eric Verne actually. So he's got ahead of Sebastian Buemi. Now he's on the back of Verne. Oh, but he just clips the wall. Back end gets loose as he starts the run down the hill. How far behind is Buemi? The answer is just under a second. Down to turn 14. This right-hander here. Then on the power, he's very neat and tidy, isn't he? Down through that sequence of corners. Sergio Sette Camara now activates his attack mode. So he's going to be in it while Jake Dennis is out of it. So that extra power that he's going to have may pay dividends. Oh, loose wheel out there on the circuit. So someone has had an accident at the final corner. It might well have been Sam Bird, because he's now a lap down, isn't he? So Bird perhaps in trouble. De Vries through the chicane. Nato has got ahead of de Grassi as well. So Norman Nato up into 3rd place, De Grassi down into 4th position. So a good move out there from the Frenchman. They're all out of attack mode now, so Sergio Stefanko, oh, and wide goes Buemi. Very wide out of the final corner, and here comes De Vries. Up the inside of Jean-Eric Vergne, big lock-up, down into 1, but he gets the move done. Good, neat, tidy work from Nick De Vries. And now the next driver on his radar is going to be Lucas De Grassi up in 4th position. The 2019 Formula 2 champion. Now, of course, oh, and there into the wall goes Jean-Eric Vergne. We're on board with Buemi here, and that is going to make the car very difficult to control. You won't be able to see the damage, but there is damage to these cars when they hit the wall, and some of them have been a little too close to comfort. You can see how much Vergne's car is weaving, so I think he has had quite a bit of a hit, and he hits the wall again, coming into 16 and 17. So does Buemi, and I think they're really struggling with the car here, and I think De Vries is out of shape in front. Nick De Vries and Vergne, and a spin for Vergne on the straight. He must have picked up a lot of damage, and that might be the end of the Frenchman's race. Nato and De Grassi enter their 2nd attack mode. But meanwhile, all the chaos behind, and Jake Dennis is bossing this one. Very impressive junior career. He impressed the BMW I Andretti Motorsport team with a German touring car test in the DTM over the last couple of years. And they decided to promote him to the Formula E team. And here he is now, rewarding that with leading the Formula E Accelerate race for the real world racers. Sergio Sette Camara in 2nd position. The Venturi of Nato in 3rd. So here's what happened to Vergne. Does he have a collision here with De Vries? No, you can see the car's just bent. He can't keep it in a straight line, Jean-Eric Vergne, so he's hit the wall heavily somewhere earlier on. Jake Dennis, meanwhile, enters his 2nd attack mode, 7.7 seconds clear of Sergio Sette Camara. Sette Camara activates his 2nd attack mode now, but this is absolutely commanding stuff from Jake Dennis. Bird is out of the race, as we presumed earlier. Jean-Eric Vergne, I think, is out of the race as well and is parked at turn 1. But no such trouble for Jake Dennis there in the bottom left as he starts the run down the hill. Sette Camara still 2nd, Nato 3rd. De Vries has made his way up to 4th place and is now in attack mode, so we'll see whether the Mercedes driver can get up ahead of Nato. If he finishes here, this might be enough to promote Mercedes up into 4th in the team standings, in the Formula E Accelerate standings. So we'll keep an eye on Nick De Vries' progress. Here is Sergio Sette Camara running in 2nd position. 7 seconds back from Dennis, but 23 seconds ahead of Norman Nato. So despite a poor qualifying, really, Sergio Sette Camara started in 10th position as he simses it through turns 16 and 17. Big slide for the Brazilian, but yeah, qualified down towards the back of the order. But as soon as he got up into 2nd place with the chaos at the start, he hasn't looked back. Hasn't looked at the apex at turn 18, clearly, but nevertheless, still a fairly commanding drive, this. We go on board with him now. Youngest driver in the Formula E field. Through the right-hander of turn 21. Steering wheel looks fairly straight as he comes down. There is the yellow flag, so yeah, I think Vergne has parked it. Here's Tom Blomqvist, meanwhile, closing in on Andre Lotterer in the Porsche. So the Porsche is there, then it's the Neo of Blomqvist there. So those two battling over 7th position, which is worth 6 points to whichever team gets it. And both Neo and Porsche come into this race tied on points, on 20 in the team standings in Formula E Accelerate. So whoever finishes ahead will move ahead in the championship. As Blomqvist gets onto the brakes into 18 and 19, you can see how much he must have had a bit of damage as well, because he's really kind of wrestling with the car on the straights. As the British driver comes through the final corner at turn 21. Dennis, though, is really commanding this one, and I think is about to start his final lap of the race. Coming into the final corner at turn 21. Just one more lap to go here for Jake Dennis. 6.5 seconds clear of Sergio Sette Camara. It's been metronomically consistent. through turns 3, 4 and 5, and then starting the run down the hill. Here's Lotterer. Looks as though he's managed to shake the attentions of Tom Blomqvist now. And actually isn't too far behind Alexander Sims. Might be a little too much to make up in these closing stages. But he has managed to get within about 3 seconds or so. And you can see how much he's managed to drop Blomqvist at the same time. There goes Sims. And we're on board with Lotterer. Into the chicane. Through the right-hand kink at 20. Here's Jake Dennis, though, meanwhile. 10 seconds left on the clock, so this is the final lap of the race for Jake Dennis and BMW. Kevin Ciggy has picked up 3 podium finishes for BMW in Formula E Accelerate. He won the last race in Berlin, and BMW are going to win the next round as well, because Jake Dennis, out across the line, takes the checkered flag and wins the driver's race in Formula E Accelerate in Diriyah. Absolutely dominant drive from Dennis. Sergio Sette Camara will finish in 2nd place, but what a drive from that man.
Wow, man, you almost destroyed my race.
Sorry, man, I didn't see.
Back markers, huh? P1.
Now, it's obviously your debut season to Formula E. You just said it was your first time actually doing that lap. And look, you've come out on the top.
Yeah, first
Happy with
race,
that?
first win.
Yeah?
I just need to do it in real life now. Yeah, first time I've ever driven a Formula E simulator, obviously here, and yeah, I think it was a bit new to all of us. I could hear everyone crashing. I could hear Lucas complaining next to me. So it was obviously good fun, nice to have a win. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
And here's a look at the results then after that race for the real-world drivers. Jake Dennis taking the victory, 7.4 seconds clear of Sergio Sette Camara. Norman Nato completing the podium for Venturi. Verne, Bird and Cassidy all failing to finish the race. But a really strong performance for Jake Dennis and the BMW Andretti Motorsport team mean that they extend their lead at the top of the Formula E Accelerate team standings. 25 points clear now of Rocket Venturi, and they're building up quite the margin over Dragon Penske Autosport, who are in 3rd place. All 12 teams now have scored points in the series so far.
And if you're wondering where the other 12 Formula E drivers were, they didn't get a free pass. They will have their race in the final show of the series on a different track. But Jack, that race was pretty eventful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. And we got, you know, the Formula E drivers are some of the best in the world, but you put them in an esports situation and it's completely different. We've got Jade Edwards with us today, which is great, and we'll be speaking to her a little bit later. But you put the top drivers in the world into esports and you think they're going to be great, but it's such a different yet the same thing.
Yeah, I think when you're a driver like myself, I've grown up physically driving a car, so I drive through feel, and you learn your braking points through how it feels, your apexes, that sort of thing. When you sit in a simulator, you only get a little bit of feedback through the wheel, but actually what you're sat on doesn't move at all. So you can't adapt as quickly as to how the circuit feels, where the grip is, that sort of thing. I also think there's a slight fear factor as well. We saw at the start of that race, they all crashed. And I think that as well as drivers, I have to drive conservatively, making sure there's no shunts, really. When you put me on a sim, I'm like, free for all, let's go, because there's no danger. And I think we find that with real races to sim races, there's a few factors that are slightly different, which you can definitely see when you watch the two of them together.
OK, we'll see how that works out in British touring cars. We're looking forward to see how the other 12 drivers get on next time out, Darren.
Yes, especially as it could prove crucial for the team's title. Now, Jade, you'll stick with us for the rest of the show, but for now, we're joined by Ian James, the team principal of Mercedes EQ Formula E team. And Ian, what do you take of what Jade said about the differences between sim racing and being a real racing driver?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't have the experience that Jade does, so but I can imagine it's absolutely true. And having driven a couple of sim races in the recent past, I can say that it is something that you definitely need to get used to. Yeah,
well, Nick seems to have gotten used to it, as he ranked 4th in the race in Diriyah, which was amazing, and obviously then won the real-life racing. So how was that with the team win?
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, it's interesting when we had the team testing in Valencia at the back end of last year, it's so difficult to get a feel for where you stand performance-wise against the competition, and it's not really until that first race that everybody lays their cards on the table and you can see where you really stand. So to actually come out of the box and prove that we've got a strong package is phenomenal, and Nick was on fire for the entire event.
And I can see that you actually brought the trophy along with you today.
Yeah, I know. We brought it down here. That's the team trophy. So very, very proud that we've been able to add that to the collection.
Looking great. And given that there was such a gap between the last race until season 7, what was it like just being able to go back to racing?
Yeah, phenomenal. At the end of the day, it's what we sort of do. It's what we love. Every member of the team, the engineers, the mechanics, the drivers are passionate about racing. So to have such a long period between Berlin and that final race and the race in Saudi, it's not natural for us. So it's great to be back on track again, and hopefully the season will continue at a pace.
Definitely. And I mean, you've been at Mercedes for over 15 years. I'm sure when you came to Formula E last season as the debut, was there a bit of pressure, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you're always conscious of the brand and the sporting success of the brand. And obviously, in recent years, the success that we've enjoyed in Formula One has been just outstanding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that pressure there. But at the same time, there's a realisation that we're very much the newbies in terms of Formula E, and we're on a very steep learning curve. So again, that's why the win that we had in Saudi is quite so special.
Definitely. And with Stoffel's win in the first season of Formula E Mercedes team, it was just such a great debut. And given that you have been with Mercedes for all those years, you've worked with the likes of Stoffel, Nick, so many other big names, how do you deal with all of their different driver personalities?
We're very lucky with Stoffel and Nick. They're actually pretty grounded and really easy to get on with, which is good. So yeah, I mean, they're great fun, and I think at the end of the day, they're very focused on that one made goal, which makes my job much easier as well. So it's generally just good fun. Amazing.
And just kind of going back to you as a person, did you ever imagine yourself to be here today? And I don't mean on Formula E Accelerate, I mean in the position that you are at Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very cliched, obviously, to say that you're kind of living the dream, but it is very much that. I mean, I can remember back going to the Formula One Grand Prix at Silverstone in '91, I think it was, when Mansell won, and running after his car after it finished, and those are memories which stay with you forever. And I think when you've grown up with that and you have that passion to be able then to turn that into the job that you do, I consider myself very, very lucky indeed. And also with Mercedes-Benz, you mentioned it before, it makes me sound very old, but 15 years, over 15 years now with Mercedes has been great as well. So there's been a lot of history there, but a lot of good times.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to see what you're going to do for the rest of the season. Hopefully, more of these.
More of those would be great.
More of those,
yeah,
amazing. And thank you so much. So I think that it's nearly ready to have a look at what happened in qualifying in the last hour. So let's join commentator Jack Nichols, who's just over there.
Yes, looking forward to qualifying, getting underway, and who is going to be securing pole position and the 3 points that go with it. The top 6 in the championship will be going out first of all. Erhan Yayovski, Kevin Ciggy, Freddie Rasmussen, Manuel Biancalila, Petter Berliak and Marius Golombek then. And here is Freddie Rasmussen out on circuit now in the Dragon Penske machine. Now, he has had an impressive start to his rFactor 2 career, has Freddie Rasmussen. 2 second places in qualifying in the last 2 races after finishing 16th in race 1. So he's really hooked it up into some front row starts in the last 2 races. And we are on board with him now, coming down to the bottom of the hill. Swinging it through the left and then the right at turn 14 and out onto the bottom stretch. Erhan Yayovski is out there as well, a 22.565 in Sector 1 for Yayovski. Now, this is the driver who took both pole positions in the first 2 races, but then struggled out in Group 1 in Berlin and could only manage 10th on the grid. Kevin Ciggy was the driver who took pole position last time in Berlin after a brace of 4th places in New York and Hong Kong. So fascinated to see what these drivers can do. It's Freddie Rasmussen who's quickest in the first sector, though, compared to the other 2. He's coming up to the final corner now. The Dane out across the line, and it's a 1 minute 9.619 for Freddie Rasmussen. So that is the benchmark time. Erhan Yayovski is going to be next up through turn 21, out across the line, and Yayovski goes second, 0.3 of a second away from Rasmussen. Biancalil's 0.6 away from Rasmussen. Golombek goes third, 0.4 adrift. Here comes Kevin Ciggy, pole last time, only second. This time, 0.003 quicker than Erhan Yayovski, and then Petr Berliak slots into 5th position. So provisional pole position then. And these are the cars that are going to be out in Group 2. Risto Capit, Martin Stefanko, Bono Huis. And then we'll have Gassner, Carroll and Jarno Opmeer. But it is Freddie Rasmussen on provisional pole with a big margin over Kevin Ciggy. And we're on board here with Risto Capit, the Neo racer. There you see him in the bottom left. Quite a low steering wheel position, isn't it? More GT style than single-seater style that we see some of these drivers running with. And Capit, a driver for the R8G esports team, Romain Grosjean squad, and we're going to be speaking to Romain at the end of the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Here comes Graham Carroll, and now Bono Huis. Huis finished 4th in the first round in New York City, but then a 15th and 16th in the next 2 races. In fact, didn't make it to the end of the last race in Berlin because he ran out of energy, as Carroll comes now down to the bottom of the hill at turn 14. He's a couple of tenths away in Sector 1. Risto Capit is 4 tenths away in Sector 1, so it really was that first sector for Rasmussen, which is the descend down the hill, that he's managed to make such a big advantage over the rest of the field. Here comes Risto Capit across the line, and he slots into 7th position. That's a bit of a frustrating one. Bono Huis now, the Dutchman from Maastricht, out and across the line, and Huis goes up into 4th place. Good lap there from him. Graham Carroll now in the Envision Virgin car. Into the final corner, he's in Robin France's car. Robin took one of the pole positions in Diriyah, but it's only 5th this time for Graham Carroll. Opmeer's done a very good middle sector here. Jarno Opmeer, another newcomer to rFactor 2 after winning the F1 esports title last year, but it's only 6th place despite that strong middle sector. Sectors 1 and 2 struggling a little bit for the Mercedes EQ driver. Out in Group 3, we've got Nikodem Wisniewski, Olli Pakala, Jan van der Heijden, Honzik, Brzezinski and Leuk. And there is Jan van der Heijden in the bottom left, racing the Nissan Edams car. Very successful, particularly in GTs, Jan van der Heijden. Now we're with Nikodem Wisniewski, who's hitting the wall quite a lot on the run down the hill, and this is a bad middle sector now for the DS Techeetah driver, I fear. Olli Pakala is almost 4 tenths down in Sector 1 on Freddie Rasmussen's time. There you see Pakala up in Lapland at the moment. And here comes van der Heijden into the final corner, and Jan van der Heijden goes up into 12th place, so ahead of Mark Gassner, but it's still Freddie Rasmussen on provisional pole position. Ciggy second, Yayovski third, Huis in 4th. Again, good middle sector from Olli Pakala. If he can get the final sector right, he's got a shot at the top 10. Pakala's best qualifying performance so far this season is 9th place in Hong Kong. Brzezinski goes into 10th, and Pakala only goes 13th. So we've just got 6 more drivers to run. Can any of them stop Freddie Rasmussen up at the top of the times? Jiayu Zhang, Lawrence Herzing, Lucas Müller, Michi Hoyer, Peo Pev, and Tameya Benchik, the final 6 drivers to take to the circuit in Diriyah in qualifying. Here comes Lucas Müller. Down into, oh, and a spin. Lucas Müller in the wall at turn 1. And that is going to have him start at the back of the grid. Here's the other Venturi driver of Lawrence Herzing, his teammate Erhan Yayovski, 3rd at the moment. But as it stands, it'll be Freddie Rasmussen getting that pole position and the 3 points that go with it. Here's Tameya Benchik on board with the Hungarian from Budapest. Right up to the apex through the chicane. And we'll see where Tameya slots in. Lucas Müller is going to be at the back of the grid. Benchik out and across the line and goes up into 19th position. See what Lawrence Herzing can do. He goes up into 12th place. Good effort that from the Venturi driver. Now Jiayu Zhang in the Neo 333 car. He cuts the timing beam and Zhang goes into 20th position. And that completes the runners, so it is going to be Freddie Rasmussen who will be starting on pole position. Here's a look at the results. Rasmussen on pole. He gets the extra 3 points in the championship. It'll be Ciggy second and Yayovsky third. So we really have got the title protagonists all starting at the front of the field, and ironically in reverse championship order. So the 1, 2, 3 in the championship will be starting 3, 2, 1 on the grid.
See, that's how you do it, Jack. So we are joined with the pole position winner, Freddie Rasmussen. Freddie, you're still in the dark, I can see, since our last chat.
Yes.
But a huge congratulations. You love it here. OK, good. We love to see it. So you're obviously quite new to rFactor 2. How did you find it over these last few weeks? Or we've had a bit of a break to practice and obviously get to where you are now.
In the last month or so, I didn't really drive much because the track was not released. So I only really drove for the last week or so when the track released, and that's about it.
Brilliant. And how have you been finding energy management since race 1? Because obviously didn't have the best start, but you're really picking your way back up.
Yeah, there were some different issues in race 1, not energy management, but it gets easier and easier with energy, attack mode, all that new stuff. So, yeah.
Amazing. And how did you find Diriyah as a circuit?
It's probably my favorite so far. It's really fast compared to the others, and I like that.
Yeah, lots of Formula E drivers are saying that. So amazing. Looking forward to seeing how you're going to get it on in the race. We are now just 10 minutes away from the race, actually, and I thought it's about time to remind you that we have Roman Grosjean coming on as a guest later on in the episode. So very exciting stuff. Isn't that right, Jack?
Yeah, it should be a very revealing chat with Roman Grosjean. He's had quite the journey over the last few months or so, so do stay with us after the race for that. But right now, I'm joined by Jade Edwards, British touring car driver for this year. And how's that feel?
Pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's something that I've worked for all my life, if I'm honest. So for you to sit there and say British touring car driver, it always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, it makes it real, I suppose.
Yeah.
How's your lockdown been? How's your last year or so been? Because for a racing driver like you, with no racing, what's that like as an existence?
Yeah, it was tough. Initially, I had this race plan put together, and actually lockdown 1 happened, and it threw that completely away. And I was actually sitting out for the whole year and trying to regroup and see how I can come back in this season. But I think the turning point for me was actually in lockdown. I was able to create a bit more sponsorship and a bit more awareness and put myself into that British touring car weekend. I did 1 race all year, and actually that 1 race triggered me into this season that I've got now.
So the British touring cars is one of the top tin top series in the world, maybe the best tin top touring car series in the world. But you're going to be the first full-time woman driver in it for nearly 15 years or so. How does that make you feel? Obviously, it was International Women's Day earlier this week. How does that feel as sort of as a trailblazer, I suppose? And how would you have felt when you said this has been the dream your whole life, if you had someone like that to sort of aspire to?
Yeah, I think being a racing driver, being the first female in over a decade, doesn't make much difference. I'm a driver first and foremost, but looking at the youngsters around me, it's definitely something to look up to. I mean, the amount of young girls that come up to me now and come up all starry-eyed and ask for an autograph and things like that, I didn't have that, like you say, when I was younger. So hopefully now I can prove to young girls and young boys that if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And I think, International Women's Day was brought up a couple of days ago, and I was tagged in so many things, and it just shows that through social media and through TV and through doing a sport you love, these young girls are seeing that anything is possible, and I love that, and I love to encourage young girls to, see something that you want to do and just work hard and go and do it.
And is a lot of that helped by the sort of social media that you took? You're flogging your own merch and all that kind of stuff on the socials, and then everyone's tweeting about it. Is that something that kind of couldn't have happened 5 or 10 years ago, almost?
In some ways, yes, and I've actually created my race career through social media. I don't have any family backing, I don't have any huge sponsors around me, so I had to find a way to get on the grid that, I didn't have the family money to put me there. So I found a way to become a brand, and I've done that first and foremost. So I go out and get the sponsorship, I create the merchandise, I interact with the fans online and the supporters and the media, and then you become a likeable character and you put out your personality, and suddenly people are invested in you and not necessarily what you're racing racing, and therefore I've become Jade Edwards, the brand, and not necessarily just the racing driver, because we all know now that the driving side of things is such a small area that we need to be the whole package, and that's what I'm trying to work on.
OK, no, that's really interesting. So we were just having a look at some of your merch there and the hats there. Put it on. How does it look on?
Well, it's a snapback. I think you should wear it for the rest of the show, actually.
Not a snapback.
Backwards as well.
No, I can't. I won't be
With those shoes, it will look brilliant.
What's up with the shoes? Why is everyone hating on the shoes today? I don't understand this. So, yeah, socials decide if my shoes are fine or not. Hashtag nice shoes. OK, let's get that trending, and I'll show you how to use social media. So you talk about Jade Edwards, the brand, and Jade Edwards, the racing driver. Jade Edwards, the person, must be absolutely buzzing about this year. You know, oh, I'm very excited. Important to represent, blah, 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 blah. But you must be, like, losing your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a class clown. You probably know yourself from commentating over the years. I just like to enjoy it. At the end of the day, I'm racing a car, and that's my career. How many people get to say that? I remember when I was a child, or, you know, at school, I'd walk past an estate agent's, and there was the same guy that would sit there every day, and the only thing that changed was the colour of his tie, and I vowed to myself, I will not be that person. So, OK, I'm professional, and I do the proper quotes and all that sort of stuff, but behind closed doors, I sit there and I go, I race cars for a living. Like, this is brilliant. So, yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing. I love it, and I'm just going to enjoy every moment of it.
OK, so what does the next few months look like? When's your first race, etc.?
So normally the season would be starting at the end of this month. Because of COVID, they've pushed it back 5 weeks. So we don't actually start until May. So when people say to me, oh, how does it feel to be a touring car driver? The only thing that's changed at the moment is I've got a different team T-shirt. I haven't sat in the car, I haven't tested the car. It's all been pushed back. So my first test is early April and my first race is early May. So I've still got a little bit of time to go. So I'm just going to take the dog for a walk, drink some tea, and maybe do a little bit of exercise just to show willing, and then just wait for that first test day.
Right. Well, we look forward to seeing you absolutely hench at the first test day then. So thank you very much for joining us, Jade. Do you like... Darren, you could pull off the snapback.
I'm not too sure about it. I think it would be much better on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ian? Snapback?
Yeah, I'm absolutely Jack all the way for the. In fact, I think it's done now.
I think it's done deal. Come on, Jack. So, yeah, when we see you next, I want the snapback to be on.
He's not loving that.
He's not loving it. But what I am loving is the questions that you've sent in for the Aliens Ask Me Anything. Now, Ian, I kind of told you before the show that some of them, well, one of them in particular, is an interesting one.
I'm dreading this.
But we'll save that to the last. So let's start off. Firstly, a huge thank you for sending in all of the questions across our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So we're going to start off with one from @F1aholic, who asks, what's the one thing you always bring to the race weekend that's seen as unusual?
Gosh, that's a good question. You know what? At having to represent a brand, especially one as well known as Mercedes-Benz, there's obviously a corporate element to what we do, and we're very careful with the team wear and so on and so forth to be representing the brand in the right way. I have to admit, though, I do have a penchant for colourful socks. So actually, it's the socks, and it's well known now around the paddock somehow.
Right.
So it's definitely the socks where it's a little bit left field now.
We're getting all the exclusives today. OK, what's your favourite pair of socks? Describe them.
I have a very nice pair of yellow ones with pink cows on.
Wow! Yeah, this is great stuff. Do the drivers... do the drivers have any?
Socks?
Yeah. Socks as cool as yours.
No, in terms of anything that they bring along, not that I'm aware of. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. I know that, but they're quite different as characters. I mentioned earlier that they're both very easy to get on with, and they genuinely are great guys. But I suppose Stoffel is more typical in the fact that he, especially when he's back in the hotel room. Recently, we've had to do a lot of quarantine and so on and so forth. We'll be playing Call of Duty or something like that to relax. Nick, on the other hand, actually asked me before we went out to Saudi if I could bring a fold-away piano. So that he could actually practice in his room. So, so that I think shows quite how different they are as characters, but maybe why they get on so well at the circuit.
So, nice. So Indy Sherrill asks, how does one become a race engineer in Formula E?
Be better at engineering than I ever was. So my background is as an engineer, but I'm a terrible engineer, which is why I'm not doing the race engineering.
Right,
I mean, obviously, to have that strong background in maths, physics, the usual kind of things, obviously plays an important role. But you've also got to have a passion for it. At the end of the day, there are a lot of people who want to work in motorsport, a lot of people who want to go for those top jobs. So I think to have that passion, that drive, and really, I suppose, let that set you out from the crowd is probably the biggest bit of advice I'd give.
Great advice. The next question comes from Sabiu Galil, who asks, what's the difference of strategy from fuel management to battery management? I'm really interested in finding out.
Yeah, that's a really good, gosh, that is testing me. I'll go back to the point that I'm not an engineer. Yeah. I think that what we've seen over the course of Formula E and what we've learned on our journey as well, I mentioned before, it's been a very steep learning curve for us. That energy management aspect is just crucial. Now, in a normal combustion engine car and a racing car, you've obviously got a certain amount of fuel that you can burn during the race, and once that's it, that's it. With the Formula E cars and the fact that we've got the electrical motors there, we have the ability to regen throughout the course of the race. So we can actually bring energy back into the battery and then use that later on. So that gives another element to the strategy, which I think is the key differentiator between sort of a typical combustion engine car and what we're doing in Formula E.
Nice. And building up to that final question then, it comes from actually, I don't know whether or not to debate who this came from, but they ask, Mr. Ian James, will you marry me?
That's from you.
You know what? Since this show is all about exclusives, I'll actually reveal who this comes from. It's coming from Cynthia 1004.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what, genuinely, A, shocked, B, flattered, C, I think that's the first time I've ever been proposed to, so that's definitely something. So Cynthia, thank you very much indeed for that. I'll have a chat with my wife, no doubt, later on and see what she thinks about it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Ian, and thanks to all of you for sending in those questions. It's great to see that there's so much interaction on socials. So, Jack, what's happening on there?
Well, no one. I've seen one tweet saying nice shoes. So for that, I'm not going to be wearing the Jade hat, I'm afraid. But you can get your own, don't worry. We have got loads going on social media. Here's Sebastian Buemi giving us a little thumbs up from when he did the race in Diriyah last week. Jiayu Zhang is ready to go, and Tagoya Porsche, of course, fully on board. And this is nice, this little Norman Nato one, his little wink when he went from 12th to 3rd in the drivers' race was very impressive. This little smug smile we got going on there. Yeah, he's pretty pleased with himself, is Norman Nato. But now it's time to go racing for real. Really looking forward to this one because the top three in the championship are basically in reverse order on the grid. We've got Freddie Rasmussen, who's 3rd in the standings, starting on pole. 2nd is Kevin Ciggy, who's 2nd in the championship. And 3rd is Erhan Yayovsky, the championship leader. So let's take a look at the grid for round 4 of Formula E Accelerate.
It's going to be a really fascinating race, this one. As ever, 25 minutes, and it's Lucas Muller after that crash in qualifying who will be starting at the back of the grid, just behind Jaroslav Honzik. Tamir Benchik will be in 22nd position, Artur Layuk in 21st spot. Then it's Jiayu Zhang in 20th, ahead of, just behind, Nikodem Wisniewski in the DS Tachita. Mark Gassner starts 18th on the grid for Nissan Edams, just behind his teammate Jan van der Heide. Not a great qualifying for the Nissan German pairing. Michi Hoyer in 16th place in only his 2nd race in the series, filling in for Kelvin van der Linde, who is having a DTM test today. Peo Pev starts 15th for the Dragon team, Olli Pakala 14th. Risto Capit is 13th in the Neo 333 car, and then we have got Lawrence Herzing in 12th. Manuel Biancalila down in 11th place for the man that is 4th in the standings, so that'll be a bit of a frustrating one for the man from Sicily. Kuba Brzezinski starts in 10th position. 9th is Petr Berliak. Martin Stefanko is in 8th position. Then it's Marius Gollenbeck in 7th spot. Jarno Opmeer in the Mercedes is in 6th position, just behind Graham Carroll, 5th in the Envision Virgin Racing car. Bono Huis rounds out a strong performance for Mercedes EQ in 4th position. And then it's the top 3 in the championship. Yayovsky, the championship leader, starts 3rd, 3,000ths behind Kevin Ciggy, who's in 2nd in the standings. And Freddie Rasmussen takes his first pole position, looking for his first win in Formula E Accelerate. Hashtag FE Accelerate if you want to get in touch, and the race is going to be getting underway in a couple of moments' time. There you see Rasmussen on the right on pole position. Kevin Ciggy is alongside him on the front row of the grid. There is the pole man, Martin Stefanko, starting a little bit further back after qualifying 5th for the last 2 races. And he has got a view forward in Sam Bird's car, who won the 2nd race in Diriyah a couple of weeks ago. And Lawrence Herzing starts a little bit further back in the pack. How safely will they negotiate their way through the first couple of corners? 25 minutes of racing about to get underway. Pole is Freddie Rasmussen. Kevin Ciggy alongside him on the front row of the grid. Yayovsky and Huis are on row 2. Quite a long hold, and then the race gets underway. Immediately, Yayovsky swings to the inside in the white and black Venturi. Rasmussen covers the inside in the Dragon car, and Bono Huis tries to go around the outside at turn 1, but I think Carroll gave Yayovsky a little bit of a nudge. But the top 5 remain, in fact, the top 6 remain in the order they started in. No, I take that back because Marius Golombek has got ahead of Jarno Opmeer and up into 6th position. But as we look in front, it's side by side between Opmeer trying to get back ahead of Golombek as they come down into turn 1, and Golombek holds the place. Ian James has come to join me in commentary, the team boss of the Mercedes EQ Formula E team. Good clean start up at the front.
Yeah, very clean and very good for me personally, obviously, to see the team Mercedes starting in 4th and 6th respectively. So it would be great to see them have a strong race today after a couple of challenging races recently. And obviously we've got the customer team as well represented with Yayovsky up there. So I think it's going to be a fascinating race.
Absolutely. Here's a replay of Michi Hoyer coming down into turn 21. Oh, and a little bit of contact. I think that might have been with Nikodem Wisniewski. Oh, and then he gets a hit from Jan van der Heide, and then he is slammed into by one of the Jaguars, I think, towards the back of the field. But here comes Freddie Rasmussen up over the line, and just like in real Formula E, the early stages are quite quiet. Everybody's kind of managing their energy and putting themselves in the best position for the remainder of the race.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've seen, and certainly something that we learned in our first season in season 6, was the fact that the race really does start to settle down. You've got that usual chaos at the beginning. You've got a lot of potential for some pretty hairy incidents. But once it settles down a bit, it gets into a sort of a rhythm. And it's not until really those attack mode windows start opening up that you start to see things moving around a little bit more. And then really, it's that last third of the race when things get really hot again.
Absolutely. There is Graham Carroll, the man from Edinburgh, down in the bottom left. Former Walter Hayes Trophy winner in his day, racing Formula Ford 1600s. Very tall though, Graham Carroll, far too tall to be a racing driver, to be honest with you, and sadly also lacked the budget, so that's why he's now turned to sim racing. Has been sim racing for a long time, was a finalist in the Visa Vegas E-race at the start of 2017 that Formula E did, and he is currently trying to close in on Bono Huis, the driver who won that Visa Vegas E-race and won a huge amount of money in what was the biggest sim racing event of all time. Now, Rasmussen leading the way, but Ciggy is just showing his nose on occasion to try and put him off a little bit.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how the drivers now are going to be managing their energy as well, because obviously the more aggressive you're going to take these earlier stages, the less opportunity you're going to have later on to maybe use the energy that you've built up. And one of the things that we took a look at coming into Diriyah was the importance of qualifying, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. It is a circuit which is notoriously difficult to overtake on. But then once you're into that race, if you can settle down into a rhythm, if you can get a decent position and start to build up a buffer, then that should stand you in good stead in the later stages.
22 minutes left on the clock, and attack mode is now open, so they'll go from 200 kilowatts of power to 235 kilowatts of power for 2 minutes twice. And we are looking at Jarno Opmeer, the other Dutch driver in the Mercedes team. As I mentioned earlier on, he won the F1 esports title last year. That's Bono Huis that we're looking at down in the bottom left, the 5 times Formula Sim Racing world champion, as he comes up the hill now towards the chicane.
It's interesting talking there about Bono and Jarno as well being our drivers on the e-racing side of things. Obviously with Nick de Vries in the real car, we've got three drivers from the Netherlands, and obviously there's something there which I've yet to put my finger on why we're so keen on them.
How is your Dutch?
Terrible.
So Graham Carroll has activated his attack mode. He's in 6th position. That means he's dropped behind Marius Golombek in the Porsche. So Carroll doing his, activating his first attack mode then, and the first of the front runners to do so. Bianca Lila doing so as well, who, although he's a front runner in the championship in 4th place, he's down in 12th position at the moment. So Carroll will want to make hay a little while he's in attack mode, but he's, I think he's just run out of it now. So that's the end of Graham Carroll's attack mode. So he's lost the place to Golombek. He'll be hoping to get it back when Golombek activates his attack mode. And I find the attack mode strategy so fascinating because there never seems to be, certainly in Diriyah, there never seemed to be a clear, oh, you want to use it as an undercut and take it first, or you want to use it to defend. Either way you did it, it seemed to work. Here comes Graham Carroll now to the inside, coming into the chicane, and I think he is still in attack mode then. I think that might, because he only activated on the last lap, so I think those zeros might not be quite right. So Carroll up into 5th position.
I think you're right. I think he is in attack mode there, and that's one of the key things. I mean, it kind of seems obvious to say it, but one of the key things in attack mode is obviously don't lose any places when actually going for the attack mode. That's crucially important here in Diriyah as well. And then obviously to really use it to attack in the truest sense of the word. So once you're in that mode, you want to make sure that you really capitalise on it. If you fail to do that, then you're going to make life very difficult for yourself later on in the race.
So Carroll sets the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, is still in attack mode. So I think those are going, they'll indicate that they're in attack mode, but it's just the timings, I think, that aren't going to quite work out. So Carroll's still in attack mode now as he comes down to the bottom of the hill. It won't be for much longer. In fact, there he goes, out of attack mode now. So it shows when they're in and out of attack mode, but the timings aren't spot on at the moment. So Carroll now back up into that 5th position, and he's only a second or so behind Bono Huis. So Bono needs to be careful when he activates his that he doesn't lose a spot. And it's getting to the stage now where Jajowski in 3rd place is the kind of driver that might be first of these 3 to activate his attack mode, because he's got a bit of a gap back to Bono in 4th spot.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do here. Certainly, if I remember correctly from the race that we had just over a week and a half ago in Diriyah, you really wanted a buffer of about 1.8 seconds to make sure that you didn't lose a place when taking that attack mode. So we'll see what the guys do here. The other thing, just going back to the qualifying as well, it was interesting to see. We've now obviously see a sort of track evolution coming through on the e-racing side of things, which is fascinating to watch. We actually noticed that Diriyah is one of the tracks that you really do suffer from in that Group 1 qualifying, and it makes a huge difference for all of those in that group. And I don't believe that there's ever been a race here where anybody from Group 1 has made it into Superpole. So the guys on this particular event did a great job there.
I really felt for Oliver Rowland in real life, because he did such an amazing job to qualify well in Group 1. He was quickest in race 1. Then he did such an amazing job to get up to finish 6th in race 1. But that meant he was in Group 1 the next day as well, by sort of the skin of his teeth. So felt for him there a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I'm personally a huge fan as a spectator of the qualifying format in Formula E. I think it makes it incredibly exciting to watch. It mixes it up every single race, which is brilliant. In the position that I actually have in the Mercedes EQ Formula E team, not quite so fun. So
17 minutes left on the clock. There's Freddie Rasmussen in his dark place where he loves to race from, as he descends the hill down the bobsleigh run, and he's got Kevin Ciggy still right up behind him, just half a second back, well, 0.6 back, and then it's the same gap back to Hanya Jajowski in 3rd. So fantastic to see the 3 championship leaders, the 3 title protagonists, all battling it out on circuit. As far as the points are concerned, it is a 9-point advantage for Jajowski over Ciggy, and then it is 17 points back to Rasmussen in 3rd place. But we've still got 3 races to go, and the final race is a double header, so he's by no means out of it yet. One thing we do see, especially in real-world Formula E, and similarly here, is Jarno Opmeer in attack mode, sends one late in the day on Martin Stefanko. Stefanko sees him coming, gives him room, and holds on to the place for the time being. Oh, and meanwhile, Marius Golombek activated attack mode, and he might have another go here at turn 21, Jarno Opmeer, but he can't quite find the way to get past Martin Stefanko, the Czech racer, as they come down to turn 1. Again, the Jaguar covers the inside. Otmir fancies all the way around the outside, might get fed into the wall. No, really good racing from Stefanko to give him room, and a brilliant pass from Jarno Otmir.
That really was a lovely move, and I mean, it just goes to show the attempts that he had just coming up to that pass, just how difficult it is to overtake on this track. So a phenomenal job from Otmir, and yeah, keep my fingers crossed that he can pull off some similar moves later on.
15.5 minutes to go. Rasmussen, Ciggy and Yujovski, the top three. Yeah, what I was about to say is that there's now, we're getting into such the minutiae of energy saving that you almost don't want to be leading the race, is often the thought, because you can sit in the slipstream and save more energy when you're behind. But that never seemed to be the case with Nick de Vries, for example, in Diriyah.
No, I mean, Nick owned it really from day one. It was phenomenal watching him actually perform from FP1 on that first day all the way through to winning the race. He didn't put a foot wrong, and I think at one point the gap that he had to the next fastest driver was something like 0.66 of a second, which is in Formula E terms very, very unusual indeed, and a phenomenal effort from him. So it was a joy to watch that kind of very rare dominance.
Yeah, absolutely. 14.5 minutes to go. We just saw Graham Carroll getting all out of shape as he went through attack mode, and then shouting basically on his radio to whoever he's on his radio channel with. Nothing like the sort of infrastructure that the Formula E teams have, but there will be people helping and talking Graham Carroll through the race. We're on board here with Martin Stefanko, who now is up behind Jarno Otmir. There you can see Stefanko on the left-hand side in the Jaguar car, the 22-year-old from the Czech Republic. He's had a best finish of 5th so far, so this 8th place isn't near the top of where he's been. Did a bit of F1 esports with Haas, a race winner in Formula Sim racing, and now part of the Williams esports team, hence his association with the Jaguar team. Now, Huis has just activated his attack mode, but he's just held on ahead of Graham Carroll, so will that force any of these three to use their attack mode? Rasmussen pulling out the lead a little bit, isn't he, up at the front, as we're on board with Carroll behind Bono Huis, but Huis, as I say, now in attack mode, so he should be able to pull back away again from the Envision Virgin car.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him do that. Now, one thing I heard you mentioned earlier, and it was interesting to hear you mention it quite a number of times. I think, did you coin the phrase bobsleigh coming through here? Yeah,
it was the TV director actually. He described it as the bobsleigh run, and it is that kind of down, left, right, and we're in a desert, so I thought that was quite funny. So
I think we'll have to have a competition to find out exactly how many times you used it across the whole weekend on that one. But it was no, you're absolutely right. It does. It is quite fitting.
Here's the honest truth, Ian. After race 1, the next morning we came in for race 2. The bosses were like, "Can you say bobsleigh run a bit less?" It was a bit few too many times in race 1. So I've only said it once in this race, and already you're giving me stick. So thanks for that.
Apologies.
Here's Graham Carroll then, coming up into the chicane at 18 and 19. You all right with me calling it the chicane? Is that that's fine?
With that, okay, absolutely. Cool. So I'll trust me, if I'm starting to pick you up on the technicalities of this, we really are in trouble. So yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, it's a phenomenal circuit. A lot of the drivers talk about just how much they enjoy driving around Diriyah, and I think I picked up on some of the commentary after the qualifying here for this particular event, that again the sim racers as well find it a really interesting track to drive.
Yeah, it's so fast coming down this downhill sequence of corners, and still the top 3 in this Formula E Accelerate race, round 4 of the series. 2 more rounds to come next week and the week after. In 2 weeks' time it'll be the double points finale, and these are the top 3 in the championship. And Freddie Rasmussen, having broken away a little bit from Kevin Ciggy, suddenly has Ciggy right on the back of him, and it's Yujovski in 3rd in the Venturi that has been dropped a tiny bit, and they've got 4 minutes of attack mode to use up. We've got 11.5 minutes left to go. Who is going to be first to blink? And it's none of the top 3 so far. Of course, one thing that came up in real Diriyah was having to use the attack mode before the end of the race. That is still true here, but this race can't end behind a safety car or a red flag, so they can go right up to the wire at 0.
No, it's interesting. I mean, you're going to have to educate me on this one, but if, for argument's sake, somebody doesn't take both attack modes before the end of the race, I assume there are the requisite penalties for that as well.
Yes, exactly. I can't tell you exactly what the penalty is, whether it's a drive-through converted time penalty or a disqualification, but you do get a penalty for not using up your attack mode before the end of the race. 11 minutes left on the clock. And this is Stefanko, still running in 8th position. He's got Petr Berliak in the other BMW behind him. Now, Berliak qualified a little bit higher up the order than 9th, I think, and he's running in 9th at the moment in the 2nd BMW. BMW I Andretti at the top of the team standings, 25 points clear of Venturi. So Berliak in 9th place will be picking up 2 points with this finish, combined with Kevin Ciggy's 2nd position. And for Venturi, it's only Erhan Yayovski that's scoring points at the moment, because Lawrence Herzing is in 11th place, just outside of the points. But here's this continuing battle then with Stefanko up behind Jarno Opmeer in the fight over 7th position. And there's the top 3 again. Rasmussen, Ciggy and Yayovski, nothing changing, 10 minutes to go.
No, and it's going to be interesting to see whether really anything starts mixing up at the front here, because firstly, I don't think that they're really going to be under much threat from the cars behind. They've had a pretty steady race so far, which means that they should have been managing their energy pretty well, and I wouldn't anticipate any of them having any issues with that. We're well into the last 10 minutes now, so it'll be interesting to see how they start to work their strategies, and whether there is some attacking now coming in from Ciggy. He's certainly closing up on Rasmussen at the moment.
9.5 minutes to go. I've checked the rule book. It's a disqualification if you don't use both attack modes. Now, here we go, on board with Ciggy. This is the closest he's been all race, I would say. 0.3 of a second behind Freddie Rasmussen. We're looking at Ciggy in the bottom left. He's going for it. Sends it coming into the chicane. Ciggy on full attack, and they bang wheels, and Ciggy slides around. Yayovski takes evasive action, and Ciggy drops down to 3rd position then. So he went for the bold move coming into the chicane. They had contact. He might get away without a penalty, because there was sort of justice served in the collision itself, but you just wonder whether that's done any damage to Rasmussen's car. Here, what happened? He sent it in with so much speed, didn't he?
Yeah, that was really tough, and I think that what we'll see there now is obviously that's given, contrary to what I said before, some of the chasing pack the opportunity to catch up as well. So it's going to be fascinating to see whether that mixes things up a bit.
We'll see whether that shakes up Freddie Rasmussen a little bit, whether he can regain his composure, the Dragon Penske Autosport driver, as he comes down the hill. And Stefan on the YouTube chat says, why is the attack mode activation so awkward? To activate it, you lose 2 places, then you use it again to regain those 2 places. Well, that's kind of the sort of theory behind it, is that you get the negative for using the attack mode and then the positive for being in it. There it is again. It's not a wild move from Ciggy. He doesn't come from absolutely miles back.
No, he doesn't, and I didn't think that there was anything particularly wrong with it either. I think it was just they got a little bit unlucky. It was interesting seeing Yayovski in the background there as well. I think he actually came off quite well on that one eventually. So we'll see what happens. But now Rasmussen's extended his lead. Certainly he's under attack mode at the moment. Ciggy isn't, Yayovski is. So Yayovski really needs to put his foot down and make sure that he makes a move on Ciggy before too much longer.
7.5 minutes to go. Yayovski, the championship leader, lights to flag victories in the first 2 races in New York and Hong Kong, but then could only qualify 10th in the last race in Berlin. Got a little lucky because Graham Carroll and Bono Huis both ran out of energy, so that promoted what was going to be a 6th place finish into a 4th place finish. So quite fortunate there, Yayovski, but he's looking very loose, the North Macedonian, and actually Ciggy looked a little offline. So this, as you say, is Yayovski's chance to try and get back ahead.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you pick up on the energy management, as I mentioned before in the race, and Bono actually got caught out at the end of the last race. Oh, we're going to see the move now.
Yayovski to the outside, coming into the chicane, and the move is made then. So Yayovski in attack mode. Ciggy has yet to take either of his attack modes, and we've got 6.5 minutes to go, so he's going to have to get on with it before too long. But yes, you were mentioning Bono running out of energy.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how important that is. I mean, if you do get caught up in a head-to-head battle with one of the other cars, it becomes so difficult then to really make sure that you're managing that energy in the correct way and you get to the end of the race. And we've seen it not only here, but of course many times before in the real-life races as well.
No further action, say the stewards, on the Ciggy Rasmussen incident, which seems about right. It's felt like a racing incident to me. If Rasmussen had been sent spinning, then it's a different story. But I think the way it panned out, that's fair enough, as we see Jarno Opmeer still under pressure from Martin Stefanko. I think they both activated attack mode at the same time. So that's an interesting one, because often you would expect the car behind to do the opposite, basically, of what the car in front does, but it seems as though the Jaguar followed Opmeer through.
Yeah, depending on the strategy that you're running, depending on the gap that you've got between the two cars, often it can work in your favour if you do decide to take attack mode at the same time. And it's those kind of split-second decisions which will often be the the difference between success and failure. Again, sounds obvious to make that statement, but it's so true, and so easy to make the wrong decision as well under the pressure of racing. Now we've got Huis. So Ciggy actually has taken his attack mode, which means that Bono's managed to get past him there. As I mentioned before, we noticed that it was about 1.8 seconds he needed as a buffer. He only had about 0.8 of a second, which is why Bono's got past him there. So let's see whether Ciggy can attack back or whether Bono can hold him off.
Now, if it finishes like this, i.e. with Ciggy further up the order in the third place that he was in before, then the gap at the top of the championship, you'd have 19 points separating Jajovski, Ciggy and Rasmussen, all three of them, with 2 rounds to go. So less than a race win in points between the top 3. So that would be quite something. Here's a look at usable energy then. Rasmussen and Jajovski a little bit more usable energy. A little bit less than Huis and Ciggy. Carroll and Gollenbecker in trouble, and I hate to say it, but Jarno Opmeer only has 18%. There's Kevin Ciggy going past Bono Huis as Huis activates his attack mode, and can Ciggy get ahead of Jajovski? He's very close to him. Graham Carroll gets involved in there too, but I do worry for Jarno Opmeer that he might be going a lap short, as Huis did in Berlin. We'll wait and see, but saving that, he's not too far short, but it looks alarming.
Yeah, 18%. I think if you're looking at that, that's not going to make you feel particularly comfortable, and the engine is less so. I think it's almost now dropped down to 16%. You see some of the others at the front. I mean, Bono Huis is still up at 20%, and that percentage difference to the front runners, in fact, 2%, 3% in some cases, will make all the difference. So again, if you can play your strategy right, if you can make sure you use that additional energy in the right places, attack where it's necessary, then that can really stand in your favour. And this is where the race really comes alive. It's in these last minutes where that energy is going to really mix things up.
Chucky says, wait, there's attack mode in this? What game is this on? This is on rFactor 2, and you can download all of the Formula E content from the from rFactor 2, from Studio 397. So if you want to be racing in these cars, then feel free, get online and get on with it. Here's Jarno Opmeer then under big pressure from Stefanko, and Peter Berliak is right behind. Stefanko tries to go around the outside. That could line it up nicely for the BMW driver in behind of Peter Berliak. Can he find a move coming into turn 21? Again, everybody being fairly gentle and covering the inside. Jajovski is in his second attack mode now.
Some lovely defensive driving there from Opmeer, but with the energy differential there, he's going to have a fight on his hands to keep those guys behind him for much longer.
So we've got 2.5 minutes left on the clock, so Ciggy is going to have to take his second attack mode this time around, surely. He's got 13% of usable energy remaining, but he's going to have to get through it. Of course, there's 2 minutes left on the clock, but depending on when they cross the line, there could be another 3.5 minutes left in the race. So keep your eye on Kevin Ciggy in third position in the BMW, and that might drop him back out behind Bono Huis as they climb up the hill. Here's Opmeer still defending hard, but of course the more you're defending, the more energy you're using, and he's not in a great place energy-wise, although again 10%, it's the least of anyone except for Bianca Lila, but he's not miles away. And there goes Ciggy, so he does activate his attack mode now, comes out Cyborg just in front of Bono Huis. So Ciggy is going to hold on to that third spot, I think, just ahead of the Mercedes EQ driver. And then still we've got this train in behind as Jarno Opmeer has now been passed. So Stefanko's got through. Opmeer, there's going to be contact here at the final corner. No, he just keeps ahead of Peter Berliak in their fight over 8th position. So Martin Stefanko up into 7th, Opmeer 8th, Berliak 9th, Lawrence Herzing now in the other Venturi is into the top 10. So great to see Lawrence Herzing, who's a volunteer for the Red Cross during the day and then a sim racer at night, and he's now getting up into 10th place, into the points for what would be his first point of the season. But having said that, I've probably jinxed it.
There's some great driving here up in the midfield for these positions, but also just going back to Ciggy taking that attack mode. Obviously, personally gutted that Bonner didn't get past him, but no, it's a great move from Ciggy to just stay ahead there.
So 40 seconds left on the clock. So that means that Rasmussen will be coming through to start his final lap now. So at the end of this one, that will be the final lap for Freddie Rasmussen out in front. Here's another attack on Jarno Opmeer from Peter Berliak. Berliak to the outside in the BMW, and he's going to get that done very, very nicely indeed. I have to say, full credit to Opmeer, because he was looking he's still looking a bit touch and go for energy, but not absolutely terrible like he was earlier. But there's Lawrence Herzing up the inside and a little brush with the wall on the exit for the Mercedes driver. But he's got a bit of space back to Kuba Brzezinski, so that 10th place should be doable.
Yeah, it just goes to show again how important it is to conserve your energy, and really that 1-2% difference it leaves you as a sitting duck, especially in these closing races or closing laps of the race.
So here comes Freddie Rasmussen. A difficult start to his rFactor 2 career. Had a poor qualifying, could only qualify 16th in New York City, having been top of the qualifiers in the open qualifying. But now he's really getting on board. Bono Huis still holding on to that 4th place. Looks like he'll be able to continue that form. But out in front, it is going to be Freddie Rasmussen in the Dragon Penske Auto Sport car. The 20-year-old Dane comes through the final corner and takes his first win in Formula E Accelerate. It moves him closer to championship leader Erhan Yayovski. And as you would expect from Freddie Rasmussen, barely a glimmer of delight crosses his face. Such a cool, calm, collected customer. Bono Huis comes across the line in 4th position. So a good result for him. That matches his best result of the season with 4th in the opening round. And there's Erhan Yayovski, 2nd place. Not bad, considering he started in 3rd, but this is when you get into these championship fights, and a 2nd place finish, great, cool, good points, fine, but it's not what you're here for.
I don't know. I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's the racer in all of these guys will want to make sure that they're coming on that top step, but at the same time, they're definitely going to have their eye on the championship as well.
So Freddie Rasmussen takes the win. Erhan Yayovski is 2nd, and it's 3rd for Kevin Ciggy. So the top 3 in the championship, filling the top 3 places on the podium. It means that it'll be 86 points for Erhan Yayovski at the top of the championship. Freddie Rasmussen will move on to 67 points, so he'll be 19 points further back. And then it'll be 74 points for Kevin Ciggy in 2nd position. So here's a look at the results after round 4 of Formula E Accelerate. Freddie Rasmussen takes the win for Dragon Penske Autosport after 21 laps of racing. 1.8 seconds clear of Erhan Yayovski after a mildly controversial collision with Kevin Ciggy in the early part of the race, but Ciggy really went on the attack, didn't he? Bono Huis gets a good result in 4th position. Risto Capit down in 13th position. Manuel Biancalila will be disappointed with that. The Italian from Sicily down in 14th place. Jaroslav Honzik finished a long way off the back. Michi Hoyer got involved in some of the chaos at the start. Nikodem Wisniewski had incidents too, and Tamer Benchik finishing in 23rd place for the Envision Virgin Racing team. Well, let's hear from our race winner, Darren.
Yes, congratulations, Freddie. Your first win in Formula E Accelerate. I mean, could you just talk us through it all?
Yeah, thank you. Not an easy race at all. I used a bit too much energy on the first couple laps, and it was kind of hard to save it with so much pressure from behind. And then Ciggy made that move. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, what's your take on
Gonna
that?
have to look at that after.
What's your take on that? Do you think it was fair?
I have no idea. I need to see the replay first.
Okay.
It was a bit of a dive bomb, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I know that you said earlier that you really enjoyed Diria's circuit. Driving it in the race, was that a fun experience?
Yeah, it was quite fun, yeah. I have some FPS issues, which made it hard today, but still fun.
Well, you did an amazing job. Well done, and we'll catch up with you later. So now we're going to be speaking with Erhan, who came second. Hello, Erhan. Nice to see you again. Congratulations on second place. Are you happy with that result?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy, given the position which I started on. So, yeah, pretty good result.
And you finished with 0%, meaning you nailed the energy management down to a T. Have you been doing lots of practice in our month break?
Yeah, I had like 0.2 or something. It was really tight at the end. I started lifting a bit earlier to save, just to get to the end. So it was really tight.
No, amazing. Well done. And you're still in the lead of the championship, so I'm looking forward to seeing how you do in the next round. But big congrats, and I'll chat with you later.
Thank you.
Right, and so now we have Kevin Ciggy. Hey, Kevin. Third place, a great result. Are you happy with that?
No, I'm not actually, because I know qualifying I couldn't really do it. The lap time was there, but like I just made a few mistakes in sector 1. But the race itself, it was just really annoying sitting behind him. I was slightly bit faster when I was not in dirty air, so I was really just trying to kind of pass him, like in a situation where he wouldn't expect it. But it ended up in a collision, so I'll have to check what happened. I'm not too sure. I'm not gonna complain about it too much, but overall, it's just a really poor race from me. The first half of it was fine, but then the second half was, I don't know, horrible, let's say. So finishing P3 is not really something I'm happy about.
And so how are you going to pick yourself back up for the next round?
I don't really know. Just do the laps, do the practice, and just do the same thing that I always do. I mean, I've done it in Berlin. That means that I can do it in the next few rounds as well. So it's just about keeping it cool, forgetting about this race because it was really horrible. So and just moving on. That's it.
Yeah, well done nonetheless. You did a really good job on the podium yet again. Looking forward to catching up with you next week. So now we're going to head back to Jack and Ian with some more results and analysis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darren. That is sort of classic racing driver action there, isn't it? I think in a couple of weeks he'll be pretty happy with that. But here's a look at the championship standings after that. Erhan Yayovski is on 86 points, 12 points clear then of Kevin Ciggy, and then 19 points clear of Freddie Rasmussen in third place. So 25 points, well, 28 points available next week, and then I haven't even thought of how many points. It's going to be 53 points available the week after, isn't it? Nikodem Wisniewski in 13th position, Ollie Pakala in 15th, 2 points for Kuba Wrosinski, and Jan van der Heide's 10th place finish in the first race, still his only points of the season so far. And BMW Andretti slightly reduced their advantage. It was 25 coming into this race. It's now down to 20. Rocket Venturi closing in. Dragon Penske still there in third position. And Mercedes-Benz EQ got up into fourth place in the team's championship after Nick de Vries's performance in the drivers' race earlier on. So, I mean, that Kevin Ciggy versus Freddie Rasmussen fight, Ian, that's classic racing driver, isn't it? Because I think he's the only driver to have got a podium at every race. In 2 or 3 days' time, OK, a solid 15 points for the championship. But right now, he rues this move that is so frustrated that he couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, it's just been quite incredible. I mean, first off, congratulations to Rasmussen for winning, but you could hear the disappointment in Ciggy's voice at the end there, and the frustration that he feels that the second half of the race he threw it away, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with that particular incident. So, yeah, it's clear to see that really did determine the outcome.
So you can see here he's quite far back on the run, but he just like you can do in Formula E, doesn't lift and coast quite as much and sends it. I mean, it wasn't an outrageous move. A racing incident feels about right. This is viewed from on board with Ciggy.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, the stewards saw it that way as well. So no further action for either of the drivers. And obviously, it was the Ciggy move that sent him in a little bit too deep on that one and caused that incident. At the end of the day, he was penalised, I think, just in the performance and where he came in the end, and hence the frustration.
Yeah, exactly. Almost penalised himself, didn't he? Jade had an interesting race, starting in 3rd position, but because he was at the back of the pack, when he took attack mode, he would end up behind some of the other drivers, which is what he was kind of struggling with. So here, when he activated his attack mode, he came out behind Ciggy, but also had Bono Huis right behind him for company as well. And then he had to make this move on Ciggy, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of attack mode at the end of the day, how it does mix things up. And we spoke about, the drivers know how much buffer they need, the teams know how much buffer they need, and if you don't have that window there, but you've got to take attack mode, it becomes a real gamble, and it can make or break your race. There's no doubt about it. But from my personal opinion, I mean, it's great to see Rocket Venturi racing up there. I have to say, customer team, obviously, of Mercedes EQ. So no, congratulations to them as well, and good to see him at the top of the table still.
Yeah, got to keep the customers happy, haven't we? But Freddie Rasmussen it is who takes the win. As I said, he was the fastest in the open qualifiers. A really superb performance from Rasmussen. He took the lead at the start. Well, he was on pole position, but he immediately swept over, covers the inside line. And apart from that incident with Ciggy, he looked kind of fairly comfortable and confident, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he in the race, and we were talking about it during the race as well, how those first 3 really settled into a rhythm, and it wasn't until the second half where things got a little bit more testing for them. So I think they did a great job. That obviously helps, with the energy management as well. They were never really in any danger from that perspective. So no, a good race by all 3.
Yeah. So. Great performance from Freddie Rasmussen. He's now just 19 points off Erhan Yayovski at the top of the championship. 2 more races to come. A really fascinating race. Thank you for your insights, Ian. But now we are joined by a very special guest. Romain Grosjean is with us, Darren. How fantastic.
Yes, we are joined by the legend himself. Romain, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing? Where in the world are you actually joining us from?
Hello, I'm back home in Switzerland, and I'm doing great, thank you. Just came back from the US very recently after the first testing in IndyCar. It felt really good to be behind the wheel of a racing car. I have, the first thing I could get back on was my simulator, but I still have a little bit of a favoritism for a real racing car.
Well, it's great to see that you're doing so well. It feels like we've been following your journey over these last 3 months. How's your recovery been going?
The recovery has been going great. I can't complain. Obviously, there are some days that others are harder than others, and sometimes the rehab gets a bit boring. But generally, I can't really complain, and it's been okay. I've done the hardest part, I believe, and now it's just trying day after day. It gets better, so really no complaint.
Do you have any mixed feelings this weekend with Formula One returning to Bahrain, pre-season testing, the first time in a long time you're not there, I guess?
Actually, not that much. I think I have made my time in Formula One. I've had an amazing career, and I don't regret anything. But I think I got to the end of my journey, and I'm excited about my new challenge. And Formula One is amazing, but when you've won everything in the junior categories, you come to Formula One and you want to win races. And believe it or not, my last win was September 2011 in GP2 in Monza, and 10 years with no win. I mean, I like champagne, so I'd rather go back on the podium when I can.
Well, hopefully IndyCar will treat you a bit better. You've obviously been testing out in the USA over the last few days. How's that been?
The testing in the USA has been mega. It's a complete different mentality, atmosphere. Very open. The cars are wild. They are proper racing cars. And the first day of testing, I jumped in the car, first high speed corner, turned the steering wheel. I'm like, why is that thing not turning? And, realized there were no power steering wheel. And when you drive for 10 years with power steering wheel, you do forget how heavy it can get. So I've been back in the gym working on my biceps and making sure that I can extract the maximum of the car. But, day 2 in Laguna Seca, things went pretty well. And I was happy with the progress we've made. Still a lot to learn, 35 years old, 180 Grand Prix in Formula 1, but a rookie.
And as well as working out your guns, what else have you been up to?
I've been busy with sim racing. I got really involved the last year during the pandemic. Pandemic is still going on, but during the lockdown, and we've got many drivers and following the result, working with them. In the FIA Accelerate Championship, we've got Risto Capet and Eran Jajowski, and they're doing amazing. And we've got some other drivers in different categories, and I'm super proud of them. I get involved as much as I can. And also I'm trying to learn from them and try to beat them, but they're fast.
We saw a lot of drivers getting involved in the sim racing stuff during the lockdown, but for some it sort of caught more than others. You seem to have really got into that. Were you surprised how much you've got involved?
I think when I do something, I do it 100%. And so when I decided that I was going to come into sim racing world, I knew I was going to spend hours in the sim. And obviously, I think it's a really great tool. I really want to, and it's great to see that it's happening. The bridge between reality and virtual, it's happening more and more. And I really think, I had the chance to live my dream in motorsports. And if I can give that chance to some of the younger guys, the sim racers, by being professional in sim racing, or even trying to get the bridge between sim racing and racing cars, which we have actually just made with one of our drivers, Jody Much. He's one of our esports driver, and he's going to compete in the Brit Car Championship in the Praga R1 this year. And this is a first step in the right direction, but I want to see more.
Well, Roman will be setting a lap time around New York City, so keep your eyes on our social media for that. But for now, thank you so much for joining us, Roman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, so now we're going to be taking a look at where we'll be going next week.
Yeah, we're going to Electric Docks, a fictional circuit, but we're sticking with the sort of theme of harbour fronts like New York and Hong Kong and Monaco, and it proved tricky in the Race at Home Challenge last year, and it's had some updates since then, so should be a lot of fun.
Should be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed your pronunciation of Monaco.
It's how Sterling Moss used to say it, so...
It looks like I'm not the only one with weird pronunciations today. But just a quick moment to take a look at all the social media updates, because it seems like I was right about the shoes. The votes are in, and it appears that people think that they're not very box fresh.
So that's it, I can't wear the shoes?
I'm afraid not. But do you know what you can wear? Jade?
Oh, and I can wear the hat. All right, fine.
We love it. We love to see it.
Yeah, we love to see it. But it was great to talk to Roman, wasn't it? I mean, what a guy.
Yeah, and it's great to see... Jack. It was great to see that he's back driving again, because, my goodness, what a crash that was. Jade, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think when you're a racing driver, you kind of expect to have crashes throughout your career, but that one was huge. Even as a spectator watching it on TV, you honestly, it took your breath away and you thought instantly the worst. I think, as he's a bit older, when you're 19, 20 years old, you kind of have these crashes and you bounce back really quickly. I think for him, being a bit older, he's got a family, it might change his mindset a little bit with whether to get back in the car as soon, which obviously he's doing, but whether his career will last as long, because he'll probably have that in the back of his mind all the time.
Yeah, and we saw some quite big incidents in Diriyah with Alex Lynn and with Edo Mortara, and safety obviously is always at the forefront of everything we do in motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference, as Jay just mentioned, between crashes where you kind of go, that's just part and parcel of motorsport, and the ones which really make you sit up and think, and those from Roman and the ones we saw in Diriyah are the kind that make you sit up and think. And I think it's credit to all of those that involved, the engineers, you know, the FIA, the teams that have done a phenomenal job to make motorsport as safe as it is. But there's always more that can be done, and we're working tirelessly to make sure that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for watching and all your comments and interactions. And I'm very lucky, actually, that I've worn matching socks today. We're not quite Ian James level of sock, but we are matching at least. That's a positive.
Yeah, that is a positive. And if you need another fix of sim racing, well, the RCCO EX is starting on their Twitch channel right now, and our very own Formula E champion, Antonio Felix da Costa, is competing. So good luck to him.
And Nikki Shields is presenting, so good luck to you. Keep across our socials for updates as we hurtle towards the penultimate round of Formula E Accelerate next week.
And a huge thanks to our guests, Ian James and Dame Jade Edwards. Again, you know what? I think the 4-week break when we went to Diriyah has definitely taken its toll on me, so apologies for that. And of course, a huge thank you to Roman Grosjean and to you guys, and also to our co-streamers.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.